This is Spiritual Soul Sliding Sideways, Chapter 25, The Completion of Desire. I touched the illusion. I tasted the illusion. I became the illusion. Now the illusion is real. This world is a place of wonders. There are so many things that make me want to gain energy. I want what makes me happy. I want what gives me pleasure. I want what I believe I need for my emotional and mental well-being. I see with my eyes and hear with my ears the things that help me feel good. There are so many things that can make me happy. There are so many people who could help me gain satisfaction. I understand this need is internal. There is something in me that makes me want to feel complete. I wonder how often someone can fool me. I think about how someone has scripted out the illusion of this life. The truth would be nice to see. If I could understand what I need without letting my needs draw me deeper. The reasons why I want anything in life are the many questions that run through my mind. Is it possible that anything could complete me? The lure of life wants to draw me in. I want to believe how I feel. I want to believe in what I see. I need to be able to trust my senses and my perception. How is it that anything can seem to have a strong hold on us? Is what we see the accurate interpretation of the true nature of things? Is anything what we think it is? How can others fool us? How can we be wrong? How is it that our minds and emotions can betray us? I wish I understood how much a connection mattered when I was young. I always gave in to superficial thoughts and emotions. I wanted to believe that my emotions and thoughts could be true. I hope my feelings can shape the world. I thought that finding the right thing, our person, would make my fantasy real. My imagination was the one thing reality could not compete with. My need for things to be fantastical was so I could finally reach the magical good place. I wanted to believe life could be amazing. I needed someone to meet my needs. I chased my fantasies most of my life. I did not consider the extent of my selfish feelings. I did not think about how my imagination was the most convincing part of my mind. My imagination made me believe anything was possible. I believed fantasy could be reality if I could understand what made things work. Imagination can be a memory or a self-created hope. A memory and a thought of doing something are so close together. When we do something, we create a memory once we finish. I had wondered if I could create a memory to feel complete. I wondered if my imagination could create a memory of satisfaction. A memory is no longer reality. It exists in a place of imagination. We must think about something to be able to see it in our minds. We are no longer experiencing the past. That was the present, and now is a memory. Remembering something real is as good as something we have imagined. Everything becomes a memory, and all we have one day are our memories. We become the sum of our memories. The difference between reality and fantasy is that reality is what we did and remembered. Fantasy is a created memory that we never experienced. A memory can be something we experience, or a self-created, imagined memory. Real life emotions are what we had when we did what we remembered. The greatest temptation in life is to have a fantasy we wish to make a reality, to fill some inner unmet need. Our internal need for temptation often comes from our imagination. Our imagination is our greatest temptation. If we were to get rid of our imagination, we would also be capable of removing all temptation from our lives. We are not tempted because we have the thought of gain alone. Our imagination can convince us that someone or something will take us to a place of bliss. The imagination believes in bliss. The mind loves the imagination because it makes all things seem possible. We can lose ourselves to our imaginations because the imagination is how much better it could be. If we were able to get rid of our imaginations, we would be less drawn into how good things could be. Life without imagination would eliminate thoughts fueled by emotions. Imagination overinflates everything. We can still have what makes us happy without imagination. We may not believe reality could be happy without our imagination. The imagination can make getting a piece of gum the best thing that ever happened to us. The imagination could convince us that a piece of gum would be the tastiest thing ever. Reality is chewing gum. The best result isn't an emotional explosion, it's a nice experience. The chance that the gum is amazing likely isn't true. However, the imagination can create a perception that it is truly mind-blowing. We can get so lost in the imagination that we lose sight of what is real. We can begin to depend on fantasy. We can get so far from reality that we start making things up, using our imaginations to determine what we can gain. When the imagination takes over and then bleeds into our emotions, it can be hard to see what is real. We can become infatuated with what we believe can be real. Our imagination can mix with our emotions and convince us to believe everything is how we feel it is. When we encounter what we imagine, it's rare for reality to match our selfish dreams. The imagination can be the most selfish place we possess. The imagination is full of what we believe can be possible. Imagination can create positive things in life. For example, it helps develop medications that cure our ailments. Selfish imagination can be self-destructive. This happens when we have unrealistic high expectations. We can only see the truth of life when we move beyond our imaginations. We can only see beyond our imaginations when we get tired of having expectations that let us down. The imagination can provide us with the most unrealistic expectations. We can build realistic expectations when we remember that everyone is human. Also, everything is a part of this fallen earth. Everything and everyone have limits that may not meet our high expectations. Our imaginations can make us feel how things and people can and should be limitless. Our imaginations can suck us into a world that makes us feel how possible everything could be. We can start to believe that people and things are limitless when our imaginations take over. When we swap reality for imagination, we enter a mindset that craves our fantasies. We want our needs and desires met. When we put our fantasies up against reality, we will often find great disappointment. We do not have consequences in our fantasies. Our imagination will often not include the consequences that reality has. The consequence of our actions is what we should consider, regardless of how we feel. If I get what I want, it may seem to fulfill my fantasy. This can make me vulnerable. If we try to fulfill our fantasies, we must be open and vulnerable. This may help us get what we desire. When we desire to gain something, our openness may lead to someone taking advantage of us. People can best take advantage of us when we believe they can fulfill our purpose and our needs. The more we try to satisfy our amazing imagination, the more control we may give to others and things. We lose control when our desire grows strong enough to feel urgent. We can lose control, achieve our desires, and experience deep disappointment. We can be determined to pursue our fantasy, even if we face disappointment many times. Someone could give us 1,000 red jelly beans. Our imagination convinces us that one of those jelly beans would bring us pleasure. We could choose to eat and eat until all 1,000 jelly beans are gone. After the red jelly beans are gone, we could still have no pleasure. Our imagination could point us towards the next 1,000 jelly beans. The imagination is the most manipulative part of who we are. We can self-manipulate and try to manipulate others because of our imagination. Imagination seeks satisfaction. We often try to shape the world to match our visions. The imagination can influence us so much that we are willing to commit many acts of great evil. We may understand how people can use imagination for good and evil. We should worry about how evil imagination can affect our lives. Evil imagination can harm us. It happens when someone else's dark thoughts try to use us to fulfill their desires. Evil imagination affects us when we seek endless energy and happiness. It is amazing how we can expect others and things to be limitless. Do we want to see our limits and the limits of things and others? I am amazed by how we want others to see us as limited energy while we seek out limitless energy. When we are self-focused, we want to believe others have what we need. We may want to believe we do not have what others need because we are the ones in need. How self-centered can we become? How entitled can we become? Can we become so self-involved that the world is a place for our imaginations to flourish? We need to consider what reality is. Every person, no matter how smart or energetic, has limits and boundaries. There is not a person or thing that can satisfy what the imagination can come up with. The imagination can become anything without limits or boundaries. Time, ability, possibility, and endurance shape our reality. Our reality is also shaped by the limits of our feelings and mental growth. I can picture myself running up a mountain that's 100 yards tall in 10 seconds, but the truth is, I know my physical limits. We can separate fantasy from reality when we realize our own limits and boundaries. When we understand what we are capable of and not capable of, is when we can realize how big an imagination we have. We often do not want to limit how enjoyable life can be because it can make things feel depressing. When we learn to live within reality, that is when we feel more complete. When we can remove the overzealous imagination, we can discover what will satisfy us. We can still use the imagination for fantasy, but we need to realize how much fantasy can be real for us. We should always use imagination as a form of entertainment. We should realize what will entertain us and what can be real for us. We might believe that what entertains us can be real for us. When we live in a state of reality, we can begin to study the limits of human possibility. We need to study the reality behind our personal limits and boundaries. I want to deadlift 500 pounds, but is my body strong enough? And is my body durable enough? I want to know what is real. I want to be capable of still enjoying my life. I want to be capable of separating what is real and what I wish were real. I want the freedom of not chasing ghosts. When I chase ghosts is when I try to believe I can catch a ghost. I know I can't catch the ghost. Still, my imagination gets obsessed with the idea of doing it. Many times in my life, others have led me astray. I can still believe others and things can satisfy me. My human need for satisfaction can be an imagined possibility for what I believe will make me happy. We can gain mental and emotional responses that make us beyond happy, but what did that take? Our imagination can have us believing that many things are real. We may never find what we are looking for to make our imagination real. One of our biggest challenges is making our thoughts, feelings, and dreams real. How strong is our desire for something or someone to fulfill our true needs? We must find that reality is another great challenge for anything we want. Reality is the true test of what is possible and what is not possible. Reality often ruins what we believe we will get. Our imagination can become our insanity. We can attempt to do the same thing multiple times and expect different results. The imagination can cause many types of insanity in us. The imagination can become our sane insanity. When we become sane insane is when we have no doubt that everything we think and feel is real. Our sane insanity is when we will go as far as doing anything to bring what we believe to be real into reality. Our sane insanity can become what we believe is sane. When our sane insanity becomes sanity, we lose sight of what is sane. Society defines sanity by what is socially normal and what holds life together. Sanity is the many ways we can have order. There are many ways to cook a fish, and countless possibilities exist in life for order. Since we are unique, what one person sees as fantasy might exist physically for someone else. What exists in reality is the order we can have for sanity. There are many things in this life that test how far we can push ourselves. and what we believe can be reality. There are many people who have had realistic fantasies and made them real. Focusing on realistic fantasies can mean dreaming of graduating college. This is because we excel in school. The unrealistic fantasy is when we want one piece of chocolate to satisfy us for 100 years. Dreaming is fine, but if it turns into an unhealthy obsession, we should worry about our needs. I do not rule out fantasy and imagination becoming a reality. I believe we should slow down to consider what it takes to make any fantasy real. We often want to focus on how things can be real. We do not want to focus on giving up on things before we try to gain them. We want to have hope and believe that all things are possible. We need to ask ourselves, who are all things possible for? Reality is what will happen after our fantasies fail. I have never been able to get rid of my imagination. My imagination still tries to convince me that all fantasies can be real. My imagination wants what it wants, even when I know it cannot be real. I have had to focus and explain to myself all the elements that make something true or false. I needed to understand how to prove what I needed to know. I needed to understand if and how I could change things so I might get what I desired. I only found that what I wanted had become a need that no longer had realistic reasoning. Realistic reasoning means understanding all the parts needed to get what we want. For example, we need pancake batter to make pancakes. I seem to have lost realistic reasoning if I want to be able to make pancakes with or without pancake batter. I want what I feel I need to be real. I realize how my imagination started to combine with my real needs and wants. My imagination has become what I need to be real, to reduce stress and worry. I needed to believe in something. As I got older, there seemed to be less and less to believe in. Reality has a way of proving to us what will work and what will fail. Reality can teach us what is real without us wanting to know what is real. Reality can be a lesson in how real things are, to the point that it can ruin our imaginations. We feel good and safe when we believe how good life can be. Why would anyone want to prove what is real when it can take our safety away? We usually prefer to focus on positive possibilities. This mindset keeps us motivated to discover what we need. It is great to be positive. When we use positivity and become delusional is when we also cross lines of reality. The intention behind reality is to be both good and bad. We should choose to experience life as it is and feel what we need to feel. We should not deny any emotion to be free in us, but we also should not allow emotion to rule us. We need to be able to have healthy control over our lives. Healthy control means we don't ignore our feelings. Instead, we manage our emotional and mental maturity. We need to be mature. The more mature we are, the more we will begin to understand that there is a time and a place for everything. We do not need to feel so much that it cripples us. We do not need to feel so little that we lose our ability to care. Illusions surround us. The illusion of temptation is not an illusion in the world, but it is an illusion we want to see in our minds first. When we want to see something, its true nature is irrelevant. When we have a strong desire to believe in something, we ignore reason. This can lead us from obsession to desperation. When we move to desperation, that is when we want to lose control to get what we want. Desperation will make us look for a reason to lose control. This world will often give us reasons to lose control. The world will always be a place that encourages us to go for it and get what we want. When someone tells us to get what we want, it does not mean we should cause others harm. We can twist anything in life. We can take one explanation and turn it into what we want to get out of it. Every time temptations get us, it is another time we lose more and more control. We may want to give in to temptations. We can want something for so long that we consider there is no reason to resist. We need to consider the reasons behind our strong desire for anything. We will always be most tempted when we believe we can get away with something. We always face the consequences of our actions. We might escape physical consequences, but we can never escape spiritual consequences. The more negative, dark things we do, the greater our spiritual suppression will be. Spiritual suppression happens when we block ourselves from spiritual light. We do this by choosing darkness. Giving in to temptation can lead to negative spiritual consequences. We can't accept our negative actions as necessary to satisfy what we crave. We can justify the necessity of temptation. When we justify temptation, we are no longer tempted because we have given into what we believe we need. Temptation can encourage us to do what we want. Temptation can be how we justify doing what we feel we need to do. Temptation was always the gate we walked through to get to the house we chose to live in. Temptation will always be the trigger that allows the bullet to leave the gun. The bullet leaving the gun represents the moment we lose control. We can still control the gun to fire another bullet, but the bullet itself is no longer under our control. We are delusional if we believe we can control the bullet. You could shoot someone and the bullet might pass through them. Then it could hit another person you didn't mean to hit. When we give in to temptation, we might think we have control. We can feel like we are choosing what tempts us. We can believe in self-control because we turn temptation into a choice. We are always at the mercy of circumstances. Control is and will always be an option that depends on circumstances. We can always lose control. Temptation is a driving force that slowly diminishes our control. When I lost control, my temptation took control. I gave up control to the TV. I knew that if I lost control to the TV, it would only overstimulate me and cause burnout. I always chose to quit the things that would have more control over me than I had over them. Anything can tempt us, but some things will have no effect. You could use liver and lima beans as temptation all day. I would not find them the least enticing. There are some things that we could only get a glance at and want with a burning desire. We can take the time to understand reality and what makes us need what we need. We should begin to understand, are we looking for what is missing in our lives? Are we imagining what we need for a better life? What we are missing inside is usually what we feel we need to get through this life. We need what will make things easier for us. We want to believe we understand what is missing for a successful life. What we need can be anything. We might be missing something that we think we can gain. What we want can be completely unattainable. We need to understand what we can obtain. We may be chasing illusions of what we believe can be real. We may be chasing something this world does not have to offer, and we wish to obtain it from a person or thing. What we do not know can taunt us because we are missing understanding and comprehension. Temptation will always be a force for what we feel we are missing. Temptation may always be the itch in the middle of our back that we cannot scratch. We will live and may never obtain what we are looking for. It is better to find out if this life has what we need or not. We need to understand how temptation fools us. We need to understand if getting what we want will make us happy, but may have unwanted consequences. We must always continue to learn, so we can sort out the mess our needs and wants are in. Why are we tempted by anything at all? Selfish imagination tempts us because it has no limits. We will always want limitless pleasure and joy.